Welcome back to the Seat Time Podcast. And yes, this is a very late October episode. For the October episode, we are here with Ricky Russell. Ricky Russell is a GNCC and National Enduro racer. This year, he is back on the AM Pro Yamaha team. Very interesting conversation. We go all the way back to his first bike when he was 3 years old was a PW50. So he started on Yamahas. He's been on Yamahas most of his career. Interspersed, we talk about that with different brands, of course, and different teams, but now back on that AM Pro Yamaha racing team. So cool to have these conversations with Ricky Russell. Of course, we do get into a few rabbit holes. I hope you guys enjoy those. Thank you as well for the questions that you guys sent through on Instagram. I'm going to kind of try to do that for the next couple episodes, asking there in the stories. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, make sure you do that. If you want to support Seat Time, know that we have launched the Utility Can Caddy. So it is our first from the ground up product. I am going to link to the main video that is out there on YouTube if you want to learn a little bit more about that. The pre-order is still going on currently, and it will be going on until I have the product in hand. They should ship this week from the manufacturer. We're getting excited, so please go learn a little bit more about the Utility Can Caddy. Up until that, I hope you guys enjoy this Seat Time Podcast episode from October with Ricky Russell. Dude, Ricky Russell, I think it's been about 9 years since you were first on Seat Time. When I tried to go back into the record books, it looks like it was about 2014. Is that not nuts that we're still doing this to some degree?
Let's go away. I just gave my dog a bath and she's freaking out. Yeah, no, it's crazy. I remember Big Sky, I think it was. Me, Brad Boggan,
yeah.
And Ashburn, a few of us were kind of live. You did a live thing and we kind of were in studio with you. And that's, I think that's the last time.
Dude, that's crazy memories right there. That's for sure. That was awesome. And I'll be honest, Big Stu and I, we spent too much money and time at the bar. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, that'll happen. That'll happen.
Yeah. Because one, you're Big Sky, and two, you're with Big Stu. It's like, well, somebody's going to spend too much and probably consume too much alcohol.
Yes, very. Yeah, we're hanging out with him. That'll happen.
Yeah. Now, Big Sky, that's kind of like your area, right? Like, but you're more Pacific Northwest in that area originally.
Yeah, it was funny because like I'm like probably I don't know 12 hours from Big Sky, and
okay.
So, but it's funny because I was on the East Coast racing, and then those guys were going, so I just kind of tagged along and went with them because I was kind of that was when I was just getting into the scene of things and was hanging out with the Yamaha crew, and I was just kind of tagging along, trying to go race anywhere I could. And so it's funny because I was almost back home when I drove back. We drove from South Carolina, so it was a solid drive.
Oh, dude, that's like an extra solid drive. I mean, the United States is not a small country.
No, it was a solid, 35 hours or so, or 40.
Oh my God. So how old are you now, and what would that have been 10 years ago?
I am an old man now. I'm I'm 32 now, so I would have been my first year I came back here was 20. I was 22, so
that's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, I'm 44, man. So if anybody's the old man on this podcast, it's gonna be me, bro. Okay, I get 45 next year.
Hey, still going strong.
Yeah, I may not be the fastest I ever was, but I'll be completely honest. I feel amazing when I ride still, right? Like I found a consistency in life to like the way that I eat, the way that I train and do those kind of things that when I get on the bike, I have a shit ton of fun and I feel fairly competitive for where I'm at. Now, if I wanted to race, I might put some more effort in the sense of like truly training. But dude, I'm here to enjoy Seat Time. You know what I mean? Like that's my whole goal. So and it still puts a smile on my face.
Yeah, exactly. When it comes down to it, that's what it's all about. So I still go home. I go home in the off season. I get my 62-year-old dad out, and he loves it. And I mean, he still just loves to ride. So it's when it comes down to it, that's what it's all about: going out and having fun. And if you do it enough, like you are, it's not like you're stupid sore and beat up after a long day of riding. You're kind of just like you said, you're feeling good.
Yeah. Now, in that, you just mentioned, your dad being 62, you get to go back home and ride with him. Is he the one that got you into riding? And kind of what did that look like from the beginning days of Ricky Bobby?
Yeah, for sure. He got me into it, yeah, but I didn't start racing until way later in life. Kind of started on my own a little bit because we just grew up going camping and trail riding in the mountains in Washington. That's like all we did. We just every weekend with family and friends, we were out trail riding and just enjoying dirt bikes. And then once I turned 16, I could drive. I had some friends at school that were like, "You need to come try this race thing. You're pretty good." And so I went and I won my very first race, and I was addicted ever since.
Do you remember what that first race was?
Yeah, it was a local part of the NMA off-road series back home. So, and
Crazy.
it was at Stratoline,
Oh, yeah, I've
ORV
heard that
Park.
name. Yeah.
Yeah, Works has gone there a few times, and
Okay. Okay.
yeah, I raced I think 200B or something, and it was 2.5 hours long. And I remember I'd never been so tired on the dirt bike before. I never experienced anything like that. So
I love
at
it.
that time, yeah, it
Well,
was cool.
did your dad ever race? Was that ever anything on his radar?
No, he never got into racing. I have some uncles that were into flat track big time and into some other types of racing here and there, but they never. My family, we were just more into just going camping, riding, just hanging out and enjoying our weekends together. So once I got into it heavy, we actually had a really good group of us though, lots of friends and family that got into it too, and we were going to every single local race together. So it was still really cool and really family oriented, and that's what's really cool about off-road racing.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. I grew up going with my dad. You know, he got me a bike at JR50 at 5. And I'm going to ask you what you started on too, but it was the same thing, right? Like we were just going to the spillway and stuff. But my dad had raced earlier on, and I think I was
Hmm.
around like 8 or 9, and he was like, "Dude, we're going racing. Get ready." And I was always the fattest and slowest one out there for a very long time. You know what I mean? But it's like I have so many awesome memories of us in the back of whatever van he was driving, pulling our 3-rail trailer, right, eating hot dogs and ramen noodles on Saturday nights. After the
Yeah.
kids race for me, and he's got his Enduro or whatever was next day on Sunday. So it's cool that we have these memories, and it is interesting that this sport seems like it gives us this. Now I'm sure if we rock climbed, if we mountain biked more, or we did any of those things, we might, we probably have some of that. But I think the dirt biking aspects of it's pretty stinking cool.
Yeah, for sure. I think yeah, most sports, if you got into it, you could do it with a group of people and still enjoy it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like the off-road community is just like it's such a small world, and everyone knows everyone kind of. I know people from the West Coast over to through the East Coast, and it's funny you run into people and you're like, you know them from someone who knows someone, so who races.
Yep.
And yeah, it's a small community, and it's kind of cool because everyone's pretty, for the most part, everyone gets along pretty well.
Yeah. So what was that first bike?
I had a P-Dub 50.
All right. All right.
It was a yellow one with the number one on the front. You know, they
Of
came like
course. Of
that.
course.
So yeah, it was cool. I think the first time I rode it, I was 3, and I pinned it. There was no training wheels back then, I don't think. I don't know. We didn't have any, but I just pinned it wide open straight at a rockery we had in the yard, just like a rock retaining wall. And my cousin tackled me right before I hit the wall, and I think I was bawling and didn't ride it for like another 6 months after that. And then about 6 months later, I kind of got the courage again, I think, and got on it and was able to start riding. And then I was hooked, and just all I would do every single day after school, come home and ride my dirt bike.
That's awesome. I think we all strangely have some kind of story like that. Mine wasn't me particularly. It was my sister. My dad was trying to get her to ride like my XR100, I think, in one of the parking lots by where we grew up. Because I grew up in the suburbs of just outside of New Orleans, right? There was no single track around where we were specifically around
Yeah.
where we were. And so he was trying to show her in the parking lot, and she just like got the throttle stuck, and my dad took off running and somehow like grabbed the brake and the clutch right before because she was just about to pile drive right into this huge curb. And if
Yeah.
obviously, I mean, she had a helmet on and stuff, but if she'd have done that at whatever she was doing, 20, 30 miles an hour, it'd have been bad.
It's something about every time someone first gets on a dirt bike, they get the panic, and the panic is this for some reason. I don't know
I
why.
know.
Everyone likes to pin it wide open one direction, and you see a lot of videos online nowadays of people pinning it into a fence or bushes or whatever. It's kind of comical.
Well, I looked around at your Instagram, and it was funny. We were talking about 2013, and it's 2012. Your first picture posted to Instagram is you on a KTM. Looks like a four-stroke. It's got 212 on the bike, right? And I think you're at an Endurocross. So I have to
Oh
ask,
yeah,
like, how did that adventure go for you way back then?
that's funny. You say that. I had just memories pop up on Facebook every day, and I just had a memory pop up. I got to go on the news locally in Everett, Washington, and do the
I
Endurocross
probably was
thing.
what that was about because
It's
you
probably
said
what you
something about
saw,
to go on the
honestly.
air or something, but I
Yeah.
didn't know what that meant. Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of cool. I was just kind of getting into it a little bit, and Endurocross was becoming a big deal at the time, and so I tried doing that series. I think for almost 2 years, and man, it's cutthroat. It was hard. It was hard. It was a learning experience, and yeah, I did it for 2 years. I had RPM KTM support for a little bit, and then um, I tried to race some desert stuff after that, and that's kind of where I started stepping into more off road, and then decided to go GNCC.
Yeah, you just said more off road. So does that mean that but you mentioned too that that first race when you were about 16 years old was it sounds like a hair scramble, right? About 2.5 hours long.
Mhm.
Was there any kind of like motocross racing in there and this thought that that might be more of where you're headed, or was it always kind of like off road to some degree?
Yeah, I never rode any motocross like growing
Okay.
up until I got a little older, and then once I got a little older, I started riding it a lot more. Still not ever really racing it. I've raced a couple local motocross races here and there, but more just riding it, and then got into it, and just the hair scrambles kind of just fit my style more than like endurocross or kind of the desert style racing. I just kind of fit over coming over here and racing in the woods, more hair scramble style.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask because the Pacific Northwest always looks bitchin', right? Like the brown dirt, the slick roots, the bitchin' looking trees and stuff. Like I have to get out there, like Gold Creek Lodge kind of stuff. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, it has to happen. I gotta have an old man summer camp or something. You know what I mean? Like, but I know like in the Idaho area, there's a little bit of everything, right? You can kind of get those woodsy single track, but you can get some desert stuff. So did you have that varying degree as well where you were at in Washington, or was it just more like one single type of terrain up there?
No, it's kind of similar to that in Idaho, where like
Okay.
Western Washington's all single track and real woodsy and kind of that black, wet, rooty, just technical stuff. We go on some pretty gnarly stuff that's just fun to just get through. And then you go to Eastern Washington, and we got like desert riding and desert racing, like the Desert 100 they do every year
Right.
is Eastern Washington, and it's literally, yeah, you're out in the middle of nowhere, and all there is sagebrush. So it's kind of crazy that the mountain range there separates it, and it's so diverse when you go over the mountain range and get further east. But like just a little bit east, like just over the mountains, that's where my favorite riding is, about Cle Elum area and stuff. You can go on 50, 60, you can go on 100-mile rides if you wanted to, but we can only make it so far on gas. But we go like 60-mile loops and never hit the same trail, and it's through the mountains, and it's super cool views. And that's kind of what I grew up doing. So now when I do go home, that's what I try to go get my dad out to go do, and kind of brings back good memories and kind of reminds you why we do it.
Yeah. And what was the name of that riding area?
The place that I like the
Yeah,
most is
your favorite one.
it's like Cle Elum area. It's Cle Elum, Washington.
Cluellum?
Cle Elum, CLE
Cleellum. That sounds
CLE
Canadian to me. You're making that
ELUM.
shit up. I know
Yeah,
you are. You're making that shit up. I
yeah,
don't believe you.
that's kind of like my favorite area. You can go either side of the interstate there, and there's multiple mountain ranges to go rip on, and it's really cool.
Sounds amazing. It sounds like we need to have a Ricky Russell summer camp.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Hey, whenever. I go home for the month of July every year, so come on out.
Oh, I'm putting that in my notes. Month
Yeah.
of July,
Yeah.
summer camp with Ricky Bobby. Maybe we'll bring back Seat Time Adventures and we'll all go hang out with Ricky Bobby there in close to that Everett, Washington area. Well, what's crazy is you said I started on a PW50. And again, as I go through the history books, and I've been following you for, majority of your career that I've been able to watch anyway, you've been on a lot of Yamahas. Now, granted, what's hilarious is I totally forgot about the stint on the Suzukis in there. I want to say that was like 2015, 2016 in there. But then also with Coastal, you kind of had a little bit of a year on a Husky and then 2 years on a gas, and now you're back on Yamaha. But you have had a phenomenal amount. I mean, like a plethora of time on Yamahas. Like, what has that been like, right, on all of these different bikes?
Yeah, no, a majority of my career has been on Yamaha. So I've always liked them, but I kind of ventured out to just try something different. And Suzuki was kind of just we got a little bit of support from a local guy here in Indiana who really helped me out. The MCS crane service guy, he's super cool, and he was just for that year in 2016. He had a good team with me and Chris Douglas, and I just kind of was kind of.
Oh my God, that's right. That was Chris Douglas, man.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's like brought back all kinds of memories. Holy crap.
It was a good year though. Like we made improvements throughout the year and changes on the bike, and I actually liked that Suzuki. It was good. Yeah, it didn't change for many years, but
I don't think it's changed since then.
No, they did a little update since then, but yeah, it's not much different. Kickstart Kenny's on it, the newer one, but yeah. But yeah, at the end of the year, I got like multiple podiums in XC1, which were my first ever XC1 podiums, and that was on the Suzuki. And then I got Yamaha's, got to be part of the Ampro Yamaha team the next year. So I was on with them for 3 years, and then I went to Coastal for 3 years, which the first year was going really well, and I had a near-death experience, which was not fun, and yeah, that put me out for the rest of the season. Unfortunately, that was the COVID year, and but yeah, then I rode gas for 2 years in a row, which is essentially close to the same as the Husky. But yeah, we've kind of got now we've circled back around and we're back on the blue bikes and we're loving it. It's kind of like I don't know, we reunited a little bit, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah. What do you? I mean, I think the 4-strokes that you were on probably would have been carbureted, right? I think it was before they even had like auto decompression cams in them and stuff like that. So like my question with all of that, it's like you've been on Yamahas and they've changed a lot. Like, what is it to you that sticks out, right, about like how much Yamahas have changed?
So my first 4-stroke was an 08 YZ 250F, and so yeah, that was carbureted, and first thing you do when you get it is you jet it, rejet it, and tie wire the whatever it was called. I don't even know, but yeah, there's something on the carb. But yeah, that was for multiple years, because then I went to 08 450 and 09 450, and those were all carbureted. And then and these are all Yamahas. I rode Yamahas. That was all locally when I raced local back home. I had support from a little local shop that just gave me like a little discount, and that's why I just stuck with them, and they helped me out for many years. And so I stuck with Yamaha. And then when I came over here, I was actually already kind of riding KTMs, but I ended up they were my personal KTMs, and I had issues going into round one, 2013, and had to go back. I bought one of Wibb's Yamaha 450s off of him, and so round one I rode it for 1 week beforehand and was back on the Yamaha and raced Florida for 3 hours, and I stayed on the Yamaha all the way until 2016 after that.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
What? Keep going. Sorry.
Sorry. I was gonna say, yeah. So then I went with Jason Rain's team. I got XC2 support, and so I rode 250S, and they were luckily fuel injected at that time. And then, yeah, they were really good bikes. And then now, yeah, we don't have to deal with jetting or anything like that. But they just keep developing and keep getting better and better. It's kind of crazy. It's like, what's next?
Well, one of the questions that came up when we were posting on Instagram was asking about the new chassis. And so like it's been tough for me to be completely honest, like staying completely up to date. So I don't even know if they're referring to the 23 bike, if it was a 22, or maybe if it's the 24 and you've been able to be on it yet. But is there anything that you've got the thoughts on kind of like the chassis that you're riding now on some of the 450s?
Yeah, it probably is it's the 23 450. They made a huge change from
Okay.
like they revamped the whole thing. And it's what Tomac and Fernandez went to, and um, it worked for them pretty well. Obviously Tomac, but yeah, it's been good. We've been working out some little kinks here and there. But I didn't actually get to ride Yamaha for 3 years, so like it's a big difference from
Oh yeah.
2000. It was a 19 that I last rode. So from that model to this model, I love this model. So this new one, the new updated one, just kind of fits me pretty well, and I've been really jiving with it pretty good. So, well, there's like I said, there were still kinks here and there. FC Factory Connection got us dialed in. Suspension, we did a couple of weeks of testing with them, and that was huge. And then we've tested things here and there and changed little things. And yeah, it's so far now. I think we've got everything worked out, and I'm hopefully going to 24 fully prepared on the new model, knowing what I'm getting into, and hopefully battle for that championship.
Yeah. What are
Yeah.
some of those little things that you're talking about that you might think would separate, say, let's just say it, me from you or you from me, right? That there's those little things that you're talking about changing that probably wouldn't matter for someone like myself.
Yeah, there's just little things like Corey, my mechanic. He's really smart, and they come stock like the oil breather. It goes into the air box. So if you crash or something, if the bike goes upside down at all, oil goes into the air box, and then it starts blowing smoke out the exhaust because it sucks it through the intake. So like little things like that, rerouting that, blocking off the old hole, and then there was a few little things we had at mud races where we were having some issues with intake and some other plastic parts. So we've upgraded, and everything's been solid now, a lot more bulletproof.
So what you're really saying is don't wind up upside down and
Yeah,
then oil won't get in your airbox.
yeah. I mean, technically, you shouldn't ever be upside down, but yeah, if it was to happen, yeah, don't be that worried if smoke's blowing out the exhaust, because there's probably just a little oil in the airbox. It'll burn out too. It's not a big deal. It just looks bad and might run a little bad for a sec.
Yeah. Well, one of the cool things that's having you kind of back on Yamaha, and I know you've done a lot of the National Enduro since then, but it's just like being able to see you racing the way that you've been doing. You've been doing great between the GNCCs, the National Enduros, and then of course some of the other events that you've kind of put in there. What is that like switching back and forth? Are you on the same 450? Do you make massive, changes between National Enduros and GNCCs, stuff like that?
Yeah, no. I started racing Linduros on the gas, and man, I like they're hard. It's a learning curve. It's like slower is faster a lot of the time, and it's really easy to override. So towards the end of the year last year, I started getting consistently on the podiums, and I've had a lot of seconds. I haven't won one yet, so I really want to win one. I've had a lot of seconds, and it's crazy because I'll be second, and we'll be after 6 tests, I'll be under 10 seconds out of the lead. It's like we're all so close. So I think last year in Michigan, me, Stu, and Grant, we were like 15 seconds apart between first and third. So it's pretty tight racing. It's cool. I'm enjoying them because I'm getting better at them, and it's just a different kind of racing. But I ride the same bike as I ride at GNCC. Sometimes we'll go maybe a click or two softer, try to just kind of go a little bit softer for the enduros, because you're kind of coming in blind, not knowing what you're going to hit. So you got to retrail, and sometimes some things you hit, you want a little bit more cushion. So I've tried doing like different settings and going back and forth, but I typically like my bikes to feel the same. So I just kind of run the same setting that I run at GNCC, but we try to just go a little bit softer probably.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it sounds like it's consistent. So even though it may rebound more, like you said, you might make it a little bit softer, but in the long run, it may still be stiffer than somebody else's, but you know that. And like, so the
Yeah,
way that it reacts, you kind of know what it's going to do. So you can adapt and not expect the bike to try to be perfect.
exactly. No, I think just knowing what it's going to do, like you just comfortable, you know what your bike's going to do is a huge part of it. I don't like to make too many changes like coming up into a race.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. But then, what are your thoughts on the GNCC for you this year? Now, I looked in the results. No, it is tough for me, right? 44, I got 3 kids, all this kinds of stuff.
Oh
Seat
yeah.
time's not the full-time gig, right? Like keeping up with all this stuff. But it looked like there were 2 results missing from round 3 and round 9 for you. And I know I think you've had some injuries this year. So kind of like, what's GNCC been like this year for you, and how have you felt about it?
Yeah. No, for sure. I came in really confident. I was working really hard in January, and then I I broke my collarbone exactly 4 weeks before round one. So I got surgery, got it
You
plated.
and Zach Osborne are like hanging out in the
Yeah,
ward together, right?
yeah. Well, yep, exactly. He did it. He did it just before. Luckily, I had that 4 week buffer, so I got it plated, and I came out with no expectations. And like I said, 4 weeks after surgery, and I still got on the box. So I was like, okay, we're still in this thing. So then Florida, we were right there battling for the podium the whole race. I ultimately ended up fourth at that one, but we were all really close. And so Florida is one of my tougher races anyway. So I was still happy with that. And then yeah, the one you're talking about was round 3. It was a total mutter, and we were in third place, and we just had a unfortunate bike issue last lap. And yeah, I think a lot of people blew up at that race, but yeah,
Mm.
we were, like I said, that was one of the little kinks we had to figure out the hard way on the new model. So we didn't finish that race, lost a lot of points, but then I came out the next round swinging, and I was able to win the next round. So
Yeah.
I was stoked with that, and just like kind of rebounded and was like, okay, we can still get back into this. And then yeah, just kind of from there, I had a few pretty rough races. I think I had some issues of my own at Camp Coker and then Indiana. It was a mixture of me and some little issues with the bike, but nothing major. And then we came back and regrouped, and we've been consistently on the podium here towards the end of the year. So it's been kind of a little bit of a roller coaster. Yeah, kind of up and down. But I just think I'm looking back at it, I'm like, man, if those 2 races where I got a DNF because of issue that was kind of out of my control, I think we wouldn't be too far off. So I'm really looking forward to 2024 coming in strong, and hopefully no DNFs. That'll make a
Right.
huge difference for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like third right now, right in the XC1 points. It looks like and Craig DeLong doing pretty awesome, right? Getting the lead right now in the
Yeah.
points. Is there a chance for the way the math to work out that you could get into second? I don't think it looks like it could work out for you to get into first
Um.
unless something were to go
No,
drastically wrong for
there's
DeLong.
yeah, there's no way. I honestly haven't even looked at the points with those few DNFs. I think I'm actually more like fifth or something, roughly. I don't know. Someone mentioned that, but yeah, I just kind
Yeah,
of
you're right. You're in fifth
I'm
right
just
now in
playing it,
overall.
but yeah, I'm just playing it race by race. Like I just want to go win. After those few issues, those few races, snowshoe, I sheared a foot peg off. It was something stupid that was just yeah, we don't normally do. So and we didn't have the hardware to get it fixed with a timely manner to even be worth going back out. So stupid little things like that we've reinforced and made better. And uh, hopefully, yeah, like I said, no DNS. So I think if we can win this weekend, though, it'll look good going in. That's what we did last year. We won this last race, and I was, like I said, feeling really good coming into 20 this year. So do that again this year, hopefully, and go into next year coming in confident.
Here's a question for you. I guess all of these are questions for you. That's a dumb comment. So let's just say you win, right? Like we're spitballing here, and you're going with a ton of confidence, right? But it's like everything I was doing got me to where I won the last one, right? So in the long run, as you head into the beginning of say 2024, not a lot needs to change, right? Like, and probably if nothing else, you just stay consistent with whatever it was that you're doing. But it feels like, and I see it feels like we always are like more is better, right? Like I have to do more to become even faster, to become a better racer, right? To do all of these things. And so how do we come into this break, right, between the end of 23 and the beginning of 24 and not put pressure? Well, and how do you not put pressure on yourself to override, to over practice, to maybe go faster than is needed sometimes so that we don't have a potential injury? Now, we have to caveat this. The sport is dangerous. Like that is just par for the course. We know that, you know that. But like, what are your thoughts on that?
No, that's a really good question. It's kind of been a new thing this last few years where more isn't always better. And so like on the training side of things, not overtraining and balance is a big deal. Recovery is a huge deal. And we've learned that like when I first came over here working with Wibbs, he ran me into the ground. I've never trained in my life, and I'm training with Paul Whibley, who's like the biggest
Good luck.
animal. Yeah, exactly. He was very hard to keep up with. I honestly, yeah, it was an eye opener. But coming from that to I've worked with Caleb, I've worked with Tyler Rattray, I've worked with a lot of people that kind of taught me things throughout the years, just kind of balance, and I kind of know what I need to do now for me personally. And then also getting a little older, a little bit like on the practice days on the track. I don't have to necessarily be the fastest at practice. I mean, we all have our egos, but sometimes I know it doesn't matter on practice day, and we need to save it for race day. So if I'm not feeling it that day, I'm not going to try to push the limit too much. But yeah, this year coming into round one, I was just down in Florida and we were riding sand whips, and I had a really stupid high side crash that set me right on my shoulder and broke my collarbone. So I didn't feel like I was pushing it or doing anything crazy then, but yeah, so it still can happen. The sport it'll bite you when you least expect it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, man. You said a couple things in there. More isn't always better, and
Right.
recovery is a huge deal. I totally agree. But tell me more. Tell
Yeah.
everybody else what that means, right?
No, it's just more, I like to watch my resting heart rate. I have a kind of, I know where it's at every morning. I check it. Actually, my watch pretty much, I used to check it myself, but my watch is always pretty dang close to what I check. So
And why do you do
I
that?
just use
Like,
my
what
watch.
if somebody else is like, "Oh, check my resting heart rate." Like, what does that tell you so that others could try to like start to
Yeah,
connect the dots?
I just try to keep, because now I know where my resting heart rate should be. So if it's running really high for like a few days, I'm like, okay, I need to back her down a little bit, and so just kind of maybe have a easy day where like we kind of have set hard days and set easy days, and so you do get that recovery. I'll do like riding and gym in one day, and then the next day do the same, but then like the third day just go for like a easy 1 hour spin, so you just kind of flush the muscles and not overdo it, and it's almost like a recovery ride. And then that day do some bike work or something, and you just kind of you're recovering. So the next day you feel much better. So I typically don't ever go like more than 2 days in a row of real hard days. So the balance really, and then it depends. Even sometimes during in season, you'll be feeling run down just because you're doing too much, and you just need to back her down a little bit, not go so crazy. Um, the biggest deal is preseason and like summer break, is you have a good building block preseason, because coming into it, you want a good solid 6 weeks of like hard intensity training, just to build your base, build it really high, and then you come into it, and then during season you're not trying to like improve your base. You're trying to just manage until summer break.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot to it. It's hard to get into it too deep, but yeah, there's a lot of, and everyone's different. Everyone's bodies are different. So some people can take this much load, and some people can't. So everyone's, yeah, everything doesn't work for one person, or one thing doesn't work for everyone. That's, I said that backwards, but yeah.
Yeah.
So
Have you, what you said your watch, did you use a Garmin or something like that, or do you have a different biometric device that you use?
yeah, I like to wear Garmin. I've gone between Garmin and the Polar, and I typically, yeah, I've been liking the Garmin a lot more. So
Yeah, I've been wearing Whoop for like 3 or 4 years now, and that's what I
oh
use.
yeah,
I think I got it in 2019, but it's like it's really been a big help for me when I got diagnosed with my psoriatic arthritis for all the reasons that you said. It's telling me, like, I know what my base levels are, and it's
yeah,
telling me when I'm off of my base levels, and it's things that I can pay attention to, that I can go back and be like, oh God, what did I eat yesterday? What did I do yesterday? What did I do the day before that? Like, and is anything causing those kind of flare ups? And
yeah,
typically, like, I'll train on a bad, like, I was in the red one other day, and I didn't give a shit. I didn't even
yeah,
check. I was like, I
yeah,
woke up, I felt good getting out of bed, so I went and trained. And after I trained, I was like, oh shit, I'm in the 20% red. It's like, I don't let it lead my life, but on days where I wake up and feel like shit, I look at it, because then I'm
yeah,
like, oh, okay, like, is this a thing, or did I just not sleep that good and I can do whatever I want to do anyway? And then sometimes you just have to say, well, you know what? Today's race day. It doesn't matter. I'm
yeah,
showing up on the line, and I'm going to control what I can control. And I think it's interesting. And I know that, like, racers and riders like Justin Barsha, there are a couple others that use biometric devices in Supercross and motocross. And those are racers and I want to talk to them, like, because I think it's so interesting that more riders are doing exactly what you're talking about, and getting smarter, because it's learning about the fact that it's like how to put in the right kind of hard work and put it
yeah,
in the right place.
for sure.
Um, so with all that,
Well, and like you
how,
said, with
no,
that,
go.
like you were just saying, it also monitors your sleep too, which is, it's
Yep.
kind of, if you got a good rest, and it's not always perfect. Like some days I feel fine, and it says you got terrible sleep, and I'm like, oh whatever. But yeah, some days it always monitors your hours too, like how long you slept, and if you're lacking, and whatever. So your recharge, sleep is a big deal. You need sleep. Everyone needs sleep.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it wasn't until, I mean, I don't drink anymore, but when I was still, which is from the old Woody that a lot of people know, that says a lot, right? Like, but my liver had enough. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah,
But it was crazy when, again, when I was on Whoop, when I started, I was still drinking, and that was one of the first things that when it showed me like what alcohol was doing to my body. I was like, oh. Like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
I think I need to rethink this, and it was a slow burn from that point
yeah,
till I stopped drinking, but in the long run, so it's very interesting. Okay, but how does Ricky Bobby Russell, how do you use food and nutrition to help with, more isn't always better, and recovery being a huge deal?
yeah. That's a whole nother thing. But I just kind of like a lot of us for GNCC, we're not too crazy. I try to minimize dairy, but I just try to eat clean. Not anything, obviously no fast food or anything like that. Like Chipotle, I love Chipotle, that's good. But like, just like, yeah, try to eat clean. Really, that's the all I can really say. I try to carb load on the day before the race. I mean, I try to carb load multiple days before the race, but I
What
really
does that
limit
mean to
meat
you?
on.
Like, when people hear that, they like, it kind of takes us back to that spaghetti plate the night before a race,
Yeah,
at a big
yeah,
banquet and stuff. So what does carbo load mean to you?
yeah, for sure. Giant thing of pasta. I usually try to do like more lower sodium pasta sauce because everything's got so much sodium in it, which sodium's good. We need it. I drink enough sodium and carbohydrate mixes and whatnot. So the food, I like to do pasta and a steak. I do a giant ribeye steak the night before a race. A lot of people say that's not the way to do it because your body spends energy digesting it. But me, Stu, Liam, Johnny, a lot of us, we all know we all eat steak the night before, and I think it's just to help have some reserve a little bit because 3 hours, it's like that last hour is always tough no matter what. So we do that, and then hydration's key. Hydration's a big deal, especially earlier in the season when it's hot out. There's a lot of races where a lot of people start fading towards the end just because of the heat, and that'll get you. So, but biggest thing is, yeah, eating clean. Just not eating junk. I ate a lot of granola bars through the day too, in between eating my meals. Just I kind of coming into a race try to eat a lot of food just to make sure I'm up on everything. I tracked it all for a while with my trainer Harrison. He sends me like day-to-day kind of programs, and we kind of go back and forth on what I'm going to do depending on how I'm feeling and everything throughout every week. So he had me get an app to track make sure I was getting enough calories too for a while, and it was it was just a pain in the butt to track every single thing. So I kind of
Well,
got
how
off of
many?
it.
What was that daily calorie intake looking like?
It ranged, but like so at a GNCC, I'll burn 3,000
Yeah.
calories at a GNCC. So really, like trying to make sure we're just getting a lot of calories day to day.
Yeah, it's tough because at some point, you almost just need to eat anything. Like, and that's
Yeah,
where like you see some athletes will just sit down with a tub of ice cream because it's like at that point, it's about the calories
need
than
something.
it is about whatever's inside of it. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah, I've found that as well. Like Whoop is notoriously not very good at calories, but that's okay. I don't use it for that because the way that I eat now, I don't need to worry about it. I know what I
yeah,
eat. I eat extremely unprocessed foods because of my
yeah,
arthritis, right? And
yeah,
so it's like I have to eat so much vegetables and fruit that it's so heavy on water that I have to just keep eating. And I do leverage like protein shakes and stuff like that so that I can get in some extra supplements there when I'm just too full from
yeah.
everything else. I'm like, well, I can't eat anymore. I'm gonna drink a thing. So it's
Isn't it
interesting.
crazy how much better you feel eating like all that, like
It's
non-processed
it's
food? Like,
ridiculous. It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
there's just so much processed food now, and it's just, yeah, it's crazy.
Well, it's easy to get a hold of. That's
Yeah,
it's like it's one of those
it's
things where like if you want to have the cookie or you want to have the Oreos or the bag of chips every now and again, it's really not that bad of a thing. But the problem is that all of that stuff is subsidized, and so it's extremely cheap. And it's been
yeah,
created to be a way that not only does it taste good, but it's also easy to overeat, right? It is literally built in a way that we can chew it less to get in like 300 or 400
yeah,
calories of chips, what would normally take us 100 calories of a steak, right? Because it's
yeah,
like to your point, like we got to chew the steak, like we can't just like put it in our mouth. It can't just like digest and be all creamy and buttery and amazing. Maybe if you had a tomahawk, maybe if you had a tomahawk
yeah,
steak,
yeah,
but so yeah, it's
yeah,
absolutely. And again, I don't say that to be like screw the food industry. Don't do. It's that it's very hard to remember the balance aspect of it. I mean, you used that
yeah,
word earlier, and that's exactly what
yeah,
this is also. It's like if you could kind of stick to that 80/20 of like, listen, like 80% of the time, I'm going to kind of stick to these sorts of things. And then I'm going to go out and get ice cream. I'm going to go get
yep,
some butter at the movies, or I'm going to go have a Coke every night. Like, cool, but just don't keep it in the house. And then it
yeah,
becomes, again, easier. Like, but
yeah.
nothing's easy, right? Like, it isn't. So
No,
it's,
yeah,
so, and you guys caught me on my soapbox. I apologize. When it comes to the GNCCs and the National Enduros, I want to know exactly what that 3 hours looks like for intake. Because I think that feels like a big question mark for a lot of people. We've talked to Josh Toth, we've talked to Zach Osborne, we've talked to a lot of racers in a row. We talked to Alex Martin about this kind of stuff, and it's just different. Everybody uses different things, right? But the whole idea for you guys being out there for so long, you're wanting to take in water, you're wanting to get in electrolytes. Typically, you're going to get in a majority carbs, right? How do you do that? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I really struggle with stomach problems after a race. Um, and I don't know if it's lacking because I've tried so many things throughout the years, and like usually if I find something that works, I try to stick with it. Well, I always find something that works sometimes, and then sometimes it's not, and I'm like, oh man, maybe I need to change it up. So I change it up, and I've tried a lot of different brands and different things. Where now I typically just run water in my Camelback, maybe if I did water in my Camelback, throw one liquid IV just for a little flavor. So it's not really much sodium anyways. But then in my bottle handoffs, I'll try to have some sort of carb drink. I've done the Morton for years, and then I kind of was struggling with a little bit of stomach problems, so I lately have been running Scratch. Seemed like it, I don't know why, but I've been not
Scratch.
having.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've been not having as much stomach issues anymore. So I usually mix up like pretty strong bottles, so I'm getting a decent amount of intake, but I don't want to overdo it because my stomach's sensitive, and I don't really get affected during the race that much though. It's always after. So I found some new things to do after the race to really help my stomach, and
Like
seems
poop?
like, well, I literally I can't. Sometimes you
It's the
can't.
other
You
way
feel like
around. Yeah,
you feel
yeah,
like you need to and you can't, but your stomach,
yeah.
it's like I always tell my wife, I'm like, I'm having contractions. Like, dude, they come and go. They're stomach cramps, and when they come, they're like the most painful. I'm like, this has got to be worse than giving birth. But I'll be in the fetal position on the ground sometimes, like, and not anymore, but I've done that in the past. But now I've learned things to do. I try to drink a little protein shake right after. I'll sometimes have some bread and peanut butter and honey, just the bread I feel like gets in my stomach and kind of absorbs some of my stomach acids that are having issues. So
Yeah,
just
that's what
little
I was
things
gonna
like
say.
that.
It's like if there's a way to try to look at I know about all the stuff you were talking about when it comes to liquid IV, the Martin gels, or to
Yeah.
scratch stuff, but I don't know their breakdowns, right? And so a lot of these guys they're gonna use glucose to some degree, but it's all gonna be different. Some of it might be like a maltodextrin, some of it's gonna be like dextrose, some of it's gonna be some kind of fructose, right? But if you look at what gives you the worst cramps after the fact and stay away from that, which I'm assuming that's what you're doing, but at the same time, maybe look for something, find a way to switch back and forth, right? Like, so if you've got something that's like super simple carbohydrate, like a maltodextrin, maybe go to something that's more fructose based. So then it's like more I think from the liver, right? Versus
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
going to happen when it goes into the process with everything that goes into glycolysis and everything like that. And it will, because the thing is, it's like too much is happening in your stomach, right? And in the long run,
yes,
you're probably somebody that needs to digest more versus drink more. But you're racing for 3 hours. You can't digest food, right? So what you
yeah,
need to think about is like, is there a way that I can drink maybe intermixed in there more complex carbs so that your
yeah,
body's not just like it's just instantly inundated with glucose or fructose, and then the insulin spikes, and then everything that your stomach wants to do to digest it can't because it doesn't have anything to play with. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
just going straight into the
yes.
bloodstream.
That's
Could
exactly what it
be
feels like.
could be something to play with, or another weird thing, and we will get off of this topic for all of those that are extremely bored, is adding a little bit of protein. And by a little bit,
Yeah,
I mean like every time you take in like 5 grams, 2 to 5 grams of protein. I mean, again, so now you're giving your body something to digest and not
yeah,
just like
yep.
try and shove straight into your bloodstream. And
Yeah.
that could, again, maybe but the thing is, you got to test this stuff on like,
That's the
off
hardest
days. You don't want to
part
test it on
is,
race days.
yeah,
Like,
that's the hardest part is we I try to test things on off days, but it's never to that intensity of a race day, you know? So when the testing is never the same. So there's sometimes I like try stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. I think I should go to this. It's giving me this much calories and this much carbs. If I can do that 3 times, I should be better off. And then go to the race, do it, and I get sick and feel like crap and blah blah blah. So it's for me, it's really hard to try too much. And so like I think that's why a lot of people are like, it's kind of a question mark. They don't really know because no one really has the answer because everyone's different. But
Yeah.
I've tried a lot of different things, so I kind of know what works for me. And yeah, I do like your idea, maybe a little bit of protein or something like that to help something trying to digest, because that's, like I said, part of the reason I think why the steak has helped me a little bit too is I think I'm still digesting it later the
Hmm.
next day.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. It's so tough because you just read about carbs and you read about this and you read about this supplement, and you read about this, and it's like
Yeah.
it doesn't take into account that we're all vastly different. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's like I don't have the stomach problems you do, so I do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I
Yep.
don't know. But
Exactly.
I want to ask a couple. Thank you for sharing some of that stuff. And is it
Yeah.
typically the same for enduros? Like, because the thing is with enduros, you guys don't really need to carry hydration because you have your people there, like between every test, right?
Yeah. No, it's kind of nice. We can stop and have a drink. I typically will just drink. I'll drink carbohydrates throughout the day, or some sort of electrolyte drink. And then maybe every now and then throw in just a water. But and that I'll snack consistently throughout the day too. Just little snacks, easy snacks, little granola bars, little an orange, an apple. Like I kind of like to mix it up with stuff that sounds good at the time. I never eat anything too heavy or big though. I don't really ever have a big appetite when I'm doing high intensity stuff. So enduros are really like sprint, recover, sprint, recover, sprint, recover. And when I'm doing that stuff, I can't really eat a lot, but I can eat some at least there because we get breaks.
Yeah. Yeah. The supplement that I use Element. So because of my arthritis, I don't
Yeah,
use a lot of the typical carbohydrate stuff. So I use UCAN as because whatever they do, space science, whatever magic,
yeah,
it doesn't spike insulin
I get
nearly as
insulin.
bad as most other carbohydrate drinks and stuff like that. And so it doesn't seem to flare up my arthritis as bad, right, as some of that other
Yeah,
stuff. So I leverage that with some Element in there. And then I did the same thing. I have tangerines and rice throughout the day.
yeah,
So I kind of
yeah,
keep that in there, like about 20 to 40 grams of that UCAN stuff. So it's about 20 to 40 grams of carbs in my 3 liters until that's gone. And then I just refill it as I need to with some Element and maybe, but then I'll mix in the orange and the rice throughout the day lightly
yep,
because again, like I just feel like I work better with a little bit of stuff in my belly. Like
for
with my
sure.
body's, and it's like, but again, I'm not trying to win the Olympics. I'm not trying to optimize every little thing. I just want to feel good and
Yeah,
have fun, and that helps me do
yep.
that. So it's totally, like,
No, for sure. I think, like you said, everyone's a little different, so figuring out what works best for you. But if something's not working, you gotta try stuff and maybe do a little research and figure out, like you're talking about, maybe do a little more of this or a little more of that or a certain kind or whatever.
yeah. So I did get a couple of listener questions, and now that we're like almost to the end of this thing, I got to get to
Yeah,
these people. We got to keep these
yeah,
people if they're still here. We did, as always, whatever it is. Well, I always
yeah.
find some weird rabbit hole with somebody that we just like. I mean, it is head first. You got to pull me out with a rake, man. I am just getting all up into this thing. So somebody was asking about brake pedal height, and he wants to know. Actually, it was Tyler. And he's like, "Do you ride?" It's an interesting question. So he's kind of one asking about brake pedal height, but the second part of this is kind of like, do you ride with your feet staggered? And I think kind of what he's meaning is like, are you on the balls of your feet, like on the left side, and then maybe more on the arch of your foot on the right side so that you have more quickness to your rear brake pedal, right? Or are you kind of like balls of your feet and just move to where you need to be?
I mean, ideal form is balls to the feet and move to where you want to be. But I uh, I find myself staggered quite often, where my left foot is more on my ball on my foot, and my right foot I like to hover that brake too much, probably more than I should. I mean, you shouldn't. I like to ride my rear brake sometimes too much, and I think it's not good form for sure. But that's just I feel more comfortable with it.
Hey, if
So
you're winning the race, though, right? I
hey,
mean, like,
yeah, exactly, yeah. So I'm pretty bad about being on balls of the feet, but yeah, I try to focus on it a little bit because sometimes also just your form and just gripping the bike, it helps. Just like you can walk your feet on the pegs. Steve Hatch actually teaches that. Like you kind of go in with your toes and lock them and squeeze in, and it literally like pulls your feet in on the foot pegs. So there's
and that is like a point in, like, so balls of your feet and kind of like point your
you
toes
kind of
in.
point, yeah, well, you kind of point in, but then move your feet and they lock, like, because they're digging into the teeth, and so when they do that, they kind of lock in and squeeze the bike. So
Cool.
just kind of helps you keep planted. But yeah, I'm not the best at form, but I try to work on that day in, day out. My brake pedal, if I'm riding it too much and a lot, I will run it a little lower, so I hopefully will stay off of it a little more. But I am sometimes notorious known for riding that thing. My mechanic,
And then
which
what about height on the brake pedal?
yeah, that's why. So yeah, that's where if I kind of run it like almost flush with the peg. If you were to look at the peg, it'd be almost
Mm-hmm.
straight. And if I'm having problems where I'm riding it too much, I'll go a little bit below even sometimes. But um, I typically don't try to put it above the peg just because I don't want to ride it too much.
Yeah. And you guys don't have the throw adjustability on a Yamaha like you do on like a KTM or more of the Euro style.
It's a little different, but you can still adjust it, yes. But it's a little different the way it is. And I'm pretty picky about my rear brakes. I don't like when the pads get hot and do the squeak and then lock up. Like it bothers me. I'd rather like sometimes practicing, if my pads get glazed, I'll spray WD-40 on them. Like I and then they won't work for a little bit, but at least it'll smooth me out because I know my brakes aren't working and just kind of be smoother into the corner instead of coming in and locking up. I hate when my rear tire does the squeak, the whole and then locks up and
Right.
skids because then I feel like I have no control. So I try to make sure I don't glaze my pads.
Nice. Interesting.
Yeah,
So Harrison, your trainer, did send
yeah.
one message, and it was, who's your trainer? And so instead of, like, obviously Harrison, we know that how did you get hooked up with Harrison?
um, through Regulus. Well, actually through Harrison. I met Harrison at the Shoals when I was down there. I spent a lot of time in South Carolina, so me and Stu are good buddies. So I go down there a lot, and Harrison was working down there for a little while, and then kind of got on his program because I was having a lot of shoulder issues. Just I've broken too many collarbones, and so the shoulders are weak at times, and he I got on his program to kind of work with that mostly. So he helps me really a lot with the lifting and the just plyometric, like just working on my shoulder strength with like flexibility. So it's he's really good in that department. He's really good in a lot of departments, but I really focus with him on the weightlifting and just getting stronger.
Cool, man. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun. Like, uh, to get that question, and I was like, huh. And then when the next one was like calorie intake. I was like, oh, this is the same guy. I was like, I bet you this is his
Yeah.
trainer. And then I
Yeah.
clicked through, and I was like, nice, I like it. Good on you,
Yeah.
Harrison.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
do what you can, buddy. Okay, so this one's for me. What would you tell young Ricky Russell if you could go back in time before you were a pro?
Ooh. Um. Well, part of me is like, I wish I would have just started a little earlier, like the racing scene, just because, like I said, I didn't start racing GNCCs till I was 22, and now there's top riders at 22. They're starting out, or like people are come through the youth and come all the way up to the stages like Caleb Russell and Thad Duvall and the Baylors. Like, so now they like got to learn it way sooner. So I wish part of me says wish I would have started it earlier, but part of me, would have gotten burnt out. I don't know. So I don't know. If I was to go back and tell younger Ricky Russell, uh, really, I would tell him to focus on staying healthy. I know it's easier said than done because I have had a lot of injuries, and
Yeah.
those are like the hardest part of the sport. It just sets you back every time you do that. So there's no way I could really tell him to not do that, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, and then just maybe get into it a little sooner because that kind of took me a little bit of time to commit and actually load up all my belongings in a van and drive across the country to come try to race. So
That's a
maybe,
big one, dude.
yeah, maybe tell him to get after it a year or two earlier. I think maybe 2 years earlier would have been pretty sweet.
Cool, man. Well, and congrats on getting married. Like,
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
how awesome is
July.
that,
We
right?
got married in July, and it was cool. It was
That's
a good time.
phenomenal, dude.
Yep.
Um, what did I miss? Like, what didn't I ask? Is there any like secrets that you're just dying to get off your chest, because you're just holding this thing in
uh,
for, the rest of your life?
I mean, not that I can think of. No secrets. No deep, dark secrets that I know of. What about Brian Elliott? You been hanging out with Brian Elliott at all?
Dude, I
Haven't seen
texted
him for a
him.
while.
I know I haven't seen him forever. I saw a picture. I think it's the name of the company he's working for is Sovereign there in
Yeah.
Montana. And I
Yep.
saw a picture of them like together, like on LinkedIn and everything. And I was like, oh, dude. I texted him. I was like, oh, I miss you, dude. Like, because it's just
Yeah, yeah,
awesome. Like, I've just seen a bunch of pictures of him on Instagram and on LinkedIn, and he looks happy as shit,
yep.
running or like
He's
ultra
running
races
like
or something
crazy. Yeah,
crazy.
I
Yeah,
saw
like,
that. Yeah.
but it's like a big smile, and that's
Yep.
awesome. Like, that's
Yep.
what we really want, like, to be able to look back on. So
For sure. He's staying healthy, and looks like he's getting after it. But
indeed.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think you missed much, really.
All right. Well, and we didn't get you into
Interesting.
trouble. I don't think we asked any questions
No,
that are
not
just
too
like,
much. No. Yeah, I didn't want to throw my DNFs. Didn't want to throw the bike under the bus too much, but yeah, just had some DNFs, and then I also did have some races that were on me. So we worked out. We really worked those out. And these last two races, we had a serious mutter our first race back from summer break, and I was
yeah.
able to. I led most of that race, and then Stu got me and Craig, but we were able to finish, and I think everyone's bikes were struggling there too, because it was a gnarly one, super gnarly.
Dude, well, good luck at the season finisher this coming weekend right there in Indiana.
Yeah.
Have fun. Hopefully you do get on the box again, and you can say, man, Seat
Yep.
Time is awesome. Everybody should go on that show, because then you just win, right? Like, that's just
Yep.
kind of how it works. So,
Yep.
and hopefully that actually works out and you don't blame me for something else.
Yeah. If I don't win, then I can blame you for that too. But
As long as you say it on the podium, right? Then we're good to go.
yeah. Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm going to hit stop. Thank you very
All
much for
right.
your time.
Thank you, man.
I would be lying to you if I told you I didn't enjoy some of the rabbit holes that we go down on these podcast episodes. The nutrition thing really does interest me, and it's why I spend so much of my personal time researching, reading, and trying to become a little bit smarter about what it is we can do using nutrition to fuel our bodies. Maybe not even just while we're on the bike, but throughout life as well. So if you do have any questions about that kind of stuff, obviously reach out. I'm all over Instagram. You can hit it up on Seat Time, find us on YouTube, any of those places. I want to keep having more conversations like that. Again, if you happen to have an in with Justin Barsha, I do want to talk to Justin Barsha. I want to have that conversation. Please, if you want to support Seat Time, the Utility Can Caddy is out there for pre-order right now. Go find that at shop.seattime.co, and just thank you for the support. I hope you guys enjoy getting Seat Time, and if nothing else, we will see you on the internet. Peace.